Veteran bought a dry oil well for 10 cents. What rose from it was worth $57 million. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into this incredible story. Imagine walking past a dusty old oil well, long abandoned and thought to be worthless. That's exactly what happened to Tom, a veteran who had seen more than his fair share of battles, both on the front lines and in life. After serving in the military, he returned home to a world that felt cold and distant. His life wasn't what he had imagined it would be. Struggling with the transition, he found himself living on the outskirts of a small town, far from the bright lights and big opportunities. One day, while searching for odd jobs and ways to survive, Tom came across an old, rundown oil well for sale. The sign hung crookedly, the ground around it cracked, and weeds had overtaken the area. The price? Just 10 cents. A mere fraction of $1. To anyone else, it was a joke, a foolish purchase. But to Tom, it was another chance, a chance to feel like he was doing something meaningful again. It wasn't much, but it was something. Most people would have walked right past, dismissing it as a lost cause. But Tom had seen things in life that others couldn't understand. Things that made him resilient, determined, and willing to take risks, even when the odds were stacked against him. He bought the oil well without hesitation. What did he have to lose? The land around the well was barren, the oil well itself dry and cracked. He couldn't even remember the last time it had produced a drop of oil. But as Tom stood there, staring at the rusted metal and cracked pipes, something inside him told him it wasn't completely done. There was a whisper, a small voice in the back of his mind urging him to give it one last try. And so he did. Little did he know, that simple decision would change his life forever. As Tom began his first attempt to reopen the oil well, something unexpected happened. It wasn't much at first, a faint vibration under the surface, the tiniest shift in the ground, but it was enough to keep him going. Something was down there, something that had been waiting for the right person to discover it. And Tom was determined to find out what it was. But that's where the mystery began, and the questions only grew from there. What was hidden beneath the dry, cracked earth? And why had it been sealed away for so long? Tom had no idea, but he knew this. Whatever it was, it had the power to change everything. As Tom continued to work on the oil well, something began to change. At first, it was subtle, a faint tremor, like the earth itself was waking up from a long slumber. The oil well, which had been dry and lifeless for years, started to hum with energy. Tom couldn't explain it, but he felt it deep within his bones. Something was stirring beneath the surface. For days, Tom worked tirelessly, digging, scraping, and carefully monitoring every shift in the ground. He had learned to trust his instincts during his time in the military, and now, those instincts were telling him that he was on the verge of something monumental. As the vibrations grew stronger, the excitement that had been simmering beneath his quiet exterior began to bubble over. He felt the surge of possibility, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. His hope had always been fragile, but now, it was being reignited with each passing day. One afternoon, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the barren land, something extraordinary happened. A loud crack echoed through the air as a geyser of oil shot up from the well, spraying high into the air like a fountain. Tom stood frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief. This was no ordinary oil well. It was a hidden treasure, a relic that had been waiting for the right person to uncover it. As the oil poured out, Tom quickly realized just how much he had underestimated this seemingly worthless patch of land. The sight was both breathtaking and overwhelming. He had never imagined that a dry oil well, something most would have dismissed as completely useless, could yield so much. But the oil didn't stop. It kept flowing, filling up the surrounding area in an almost rhythmic fashion, as if it had been waiting for decades to make its presence known. Tom couldn't believe his eyes. The world around him felt like it was shifting. His hands shook as he reached for his phone and dialed a number he had memorized. It was the number of the local oil company, the one that had turned him away just a few weeks ago. But now, with this discovery, everything had changed. When the company's representative picked up, Tom could hear the disbelief in the man's voice. "Are you sure? Is this really happening?" the representative asked, his voice tinged with excitement. "Yes," Tom replied, his voice steady but full of wonder. "It's happening right now. This oil well, it's not dry. It's a gold mine." Within hours, the company arrived, bringing a team of engineers, geologists, and experts to assess the situation. They quickly confirmed what Tom had already felt in his gut. This was no ordinary discovery. The oil that had been hidden underground for so long was not just plentiful, it was valuable. The company's geologists estimated the worth of the find at a staggering $57 million. The realization hit Tom like a punch to the gut. He was a veteran, struggling to get by, and now he was sitting on a fortune beyond his wildest dreams. But there was something even more remarkable about this discovery than the money. As the oil well continued to flow, Tom realized that it wasn't just about the wealth. It was about the timing, the chance to turn his life around. He had been given a second chance, one that no one else would have believed possible. And it wasn't just him who was going to benefit from this. The entire town was going to change because of this oil well. Jobs would be created, the local economy would flourish, and Tom would finally be able to give back to the community that had watched him struggle for so long. But as Tom stood there, watching the oil flow and listening to the excited chatter of the company's engineers, he knew that this was just the beginning. He had discovered something much bigger than money. He had discovered hope. And with that hope came the opportunity to rebuild not just his own life, but the lives of those around him. As the days passed, Tom's life began to shift in ways he never thought possible. The oil well, once a forgotten relic, now seemed like a lifeline not only for him, but for the entire town. The local oil company moved quickly, securing the rights to the oil, but Tom was more than just an investor in their eyes. He was the one who had believed in the well when no one else did. The company offered him a substantial share in the profits, and within weeks, money began flowing into his account at an unprecedented rate. Tom couldn't believe it. From the outside, it might have looked like a stroke of luck, but to him, it felt like redemption. His military background had taught him how to survive, but this discovery was giving him the chance to live. He wasn't the only one who saw a change. The small town, which had been struggling for years, began to thrive. New businesses opened up, and the local community saw an influx of jobs. People who had once been on the brink of losing everything were now able to rebuild their lives. The streets that were once silent and desolate now buzzed with activity. Tom knew that this wasn't just about wealth. It was about giving back, about taking this second chance and using it for something greater. The first thing he did was fix up the house he had been living in. It wasn't much, but it was his. Now, with the money he had earned, he renovated it, adding new windows and a fresh coat of paint. He even hired local workers, offering them jobs as a way to give back to the community that had supported him through his struggles. With the house in better shape, Tom moved forward, focusing on using his newfound wealth to help those who had always been there for him. He paid off debts, settled old bills, and made sure that his friends, the ones who had stood by him even when things were tough, had the support they needed. It wasn't just the community that felt the ripple effect of Tom's discovery. Word spread quickly, and people came from all over, trying to find their own slice of luck. Some saw Tom's success as a beacon of hope, proof that hard work, persistence, and a little bit of faith could change everything. Others, however, saw an opportunity to take advantage of his newfound wealth. Not long after the oil started flowing, Tom received a call from an old acquaintance, someone he had served with during his time in the military. The man, whom Tom hadn't heard from in years, claimed to have information about an old investment opportunity, one that could make Tom even more money. At first, Tom was hesitant. He had learned to trust his instincts, and something about the call didn't sit right. But the lure of more money, the idea that he could help even more people, pushed him to meet with the man. The meeting took place in a small cafe, the kind of place Tom used to avoid. The man, John, was older now, with graying hair and a look in his eyes that Tom could never quite read. They spoke for hours, discussing investments and business ventures, but something felt off. John spoke in vague terms, never quite getting to the point. Tom's gut told him this wasn't the kind of deal he wanted to get involved with. As the meeting came to an end, Tom made his decision. He wouldn't be part of any shady business. He had worked too hard to let anyone take advantage of him now. Tom left the cafe with a sense of relief. He was no longer that soldier who had to fight for every inch of survival. He had learned the value of trust, the importance of community, and most importantly, the power of choosing the right path. His discovery was more than just a financial windfall. It had taught him how to navigate the complexities of life. Tom had found success, but he had also found something deeper, peace. As he left the cafe, he looked up at the sky, feeling a quiet gratitude wash over him. For the first time in years, he felt truly free. As Tom sat on the porch of his newly renovated home, watching the sun dip behind the distant mountains, he couldn't help but reflect on how much his life had changed. The quiet stillness of the evening was a far cry from the chaos and noise of his past, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. The discovery of the oil well had been more than just a financial blessing. It had given him a purpose, a new direction. His days were no longer filled with aimless wandering and doubt. Now, he had a chance to truly make a difference. But even with all the success, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. It wasn't just the money, the new house, or the town's renewed sense of hope. It was the feeling that there was still more to uncover. Tom had always been someone who believed in the power of hard work, but deep down, he knew that luck and fate played their own roles. And there was one more thing he had to understand: the history of the land beneath him. It wasn't just the oil that made this place special. It was something deeper, something hidden, something that had been waiting for the right person to find it. The more Tom thought about it, the more he felt compelled to go further, to understand the full extent of the secret this land was keeping. One afternoon, as he walked through the small town that had become his home, he bumped into a man who had lived in the area for decades. The man, an old-timer named Frank, was sitting outside his small shop, rocking gently in a wooden chair. Frank had always been a quiet man, someone who had seen it all and said little. But today, something about his expression caught Tom's attention. "You look like you've found your fortune," Frank said, his voice gravelly but warm. "But I reckon you don't know the half of it." Tom stopped in his tracks. "What do you mean?" he asked, leaning in. "This land," Frank said, pointing a weathered finger toward the rolling hills in the distance. "It's been around a lot longer than you think. And so has that oil well. You think you're the first one to see its potential." Tom felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" he repeated, his voice quieter now. Frank leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "There's more to that well than just oil. It was part of something bigger, something that was hidden on purpose. Not many people know this, but this land was once owned by a family who were very secretive. They didn't want anyone getting too close. The well? It was just the start." Tom's curiosity piqued, and he could feel his pulse quicken. "What happened to them?" he asked, his mind racing. Frank shrugged, looking over his shoulder as if checking for someone. "I'm not sure, but I heard stories. Some say the family was involved in more than just land and oil. There were rumors of hidden treasures, old secrets that were buried here long ago. I'm not talking about gold or silver, either. It's something bigger, something more valuable than anything you've seen." Tom's heart raced. Was there really something more? Was this land connected to something far beyond just oil? Frank stood up slowly, his joints creaking with age. "You're a good man, Tom," he said, his voice softening. "You've got a good heart. But be careful. Not everything here is meant to be found. Some secrets are better left alone." As Frank walked back into his shop, Tom stood there, his mind spinning with possibilities. What had he uncovered? And what exactly was Frank trying to warn him about? Over the next few days, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. His life had changed in ways he hadn't expected, and now, it seemed like his journey was far from over. The oil well had given him the life he never thought he'd have, but now, it was calling him to something deeper. The land, the well, and the mysterious family that once owned it were all connected in a way Tom couldn't yet understand. With each passing day, he felt himself drawn further into the mystery. Something was waiting to be discovered, something that would change everything once again. Tom couldn't shake the feeling that he was being pulled deeper into something bigger than he could have ever imagined. The discovery of the oil well had opened doors to a wealth he had never expected, but now, after speaking with Frank, he couldn't ignore the possibility that there was more to this land than just oil. The idea that this place might hold an even greater secret began to consume him. He found himself spending long hours researching the history of the area, trying to uncover any clue that could shed light on the mysterious past Frank had hinted at. Tom visited the town library and dug through old records, piecing together bits of history from dusty, yellowed files. The more he read, the more the pieces started to come together. It turned out that the well wasn't just an oil source. It had been part of an old family estate, a place that had been abandoned after a tragic accident many years ago. The family had been wealthy, but their riches weren't just tied to oil. They had invested in land, technology, and even rare artifacts that no one knew about. It was said that they had discovered something underground that was far more valuable than oil, something that could change the course of history. But after the accident, the family had disappeared, and the estate was left to rot. The well, as it turned out, was just the surface of what lay beneath. Tom knew that he had to learn more, and so he set out to explore the land, determined to uncover whatever it was that had been hidden for so long. He returned to the oil well, this time bringing a team of experts who could help him dig deeper into the ground. As the workers set up their equipment, Tom couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation building inside him. What was hidden here? What had the family left behind? The drill began to break through the layers of earth, and with each passing minute, the tension grew. It wasn't long before the drill hit something solid, something different from the usual layers of rock and dirt. The workers paused, their eyes wide with surprise. "This isn't oil," one of the geologists said, his voice trembling. "This is something else. We've hit something ancient." Tom's heart raced as he stepped forward, peering over the geologist's shoulder. What they had uncovered was a massive stone structure, buried deep beneath the well. It looked like a vault, an ancient chamber hidden underground for who knew how long. The walls were covered in strange symbols and carvings, none of which Tom could recognize. The air around the chamber was thick with mystery, and Tom couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. This was it, the hidden treasure that Frank had mentioned. It wasn't just oil. It was something far more valuable, something that had been sealed away for centuries. Tom felt a surge of excitement, but also a sense of dread. What had he uncovered? What kind of power or knowledge had been locked away for so long? As the workers carefully began to excavate the stone vault, Tom's thoughts raced. He knew that this discovery would change everything, not just for him, but for the entire world. But at what cost? What had the family hidden here, and why had they gone to such great lengths to keep it a secret? As the final layers of earth were cleared away, the vault's entrance was revealed. It was a massive stone door, intricately carved with more symbols and markings that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. Tom's breath caught in his throat as he approached the door, his mind racing with possibilities. Was this a treasure trove of ancient artifacts? Or was it something more dangerous, something that could alter the course of history? With a trembling hand, Tom reached out and placed his palm against the cold stone. The moment his skin made contact, a deep hum filled the air. The ground beneath him seemed to shift, as if the vault itself was awakening from a long slumber. He stepped back in shock as the door slowly began to open, revealing the secrets hidden within. What lay inside was beyond anything he could have imagined. As the massive stone door creaked open, a chill ran through Tom's body. The vault revealed a room unlike anything he had ever imagined. The air inside was cool, almost unnervingly so, and it carried the scent of something ancient, untouched by time. The walls of the chamber were adorned with intricate carvings and symbols, some of which glowed faintly, casting a soft light that danced across the room. Tom stepped forward cautiously, his boots echoing in the stillness as he tried to take in the enormity of what lay before him. The room was vast, far larger than he expected for something buried so deep beneath the earth. In the center, a large stone pedestal stood, covered in dust and cobwebs, but what caught Tom's attention was the object resting upon it. It was a book, old and weathered, its pages yellowed with age. The cover was made of a strange material, almost metallic, and it shimmered faintly in the dim light. Tom felt an inexplicable pull toward it, as if the book itself was calling to him. He reached out and carefully lifted it from the pedestal. The moment his fingers brushed the cover, a surge of energy coursed through his body, as though the book itself had come alive. He stumbled back, his heart racing, but he couldn't bring himself to let go of it. There was something about it, something that felt as if it held the answers to all the questions that had been swirling in his mind. As he opened the book, the pages seemed to turn on their own, flipping rapidly as if driven by an unseen force. The words on the pages were written in a language he couldn't understand, but as his eyes scanned the text, he began to feel a sense of clarity, as if the meaning was being revealed to him in his mind rather than through the words. It was then that he realized the true significance of this discovery. The book was not just a relic of the past. It was a key, a guide to something far greater than any treasure he could have imagined. The symbols on the walls, the carvings that seemed to pulse with energy, all of it was tied to this ancient knowledge. It was a blueprint for unlocking the power buried deep within the earth. Tom felt a deep sense of awe wash over him. This wasn't just about wealth or oil. This was about uncovering a secret that had been hidden for centuries, a secret that had the potential to change everything. As the realization dawned on him, the room seemed to shift, the air growing thicker with the weight of the knowledge it held. The ground beneath him trembled slightly, as though the very earth was waking up, responding to the ancient power that had been stirred by his discovery. He looked around, his heart pounding, as if expecting something, someone, to emerge from the shadows. But there was nothing, only the quiet hum of energy resonating from the stone walls. Tom closed the book and held it tightly in his hands, feeling its power coursing through him. It was then that he understood what Frank had meant. This land was not just about oil. It was about the unlocking of an ancient force, one that had been sealed away for a reason. The book was the key to understanding that force, and Tom now held it in his hands. But as he stood there, alone in the chamber, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't the only one who knew about this secret. The feeling that someone, or something, had been watching, waiting for him to uncover this hidden power. Tom didn't know what the next step would be, but he knew one thing for certain. His life, and the world as he knew it, was about to change forever. Tom stood in the center of the ancient chamber, the book heavy in his hands, its power pulsing through his fingertips. The stone walls seemed to hum with life, vibrating in sync with the energy emanating from the book. He had discovered something monumental, but with it came an overwhelming sense of responsibility. What had he uncovered? Was he truly the right person to unlock the secrets buried in this land? The weight of the discovery was pressing on him, and he knew he needed to act carefully. He couldn't shake the feeling that others might be watching, waiting for him to make the next move. As he exited the chamber, the air around him felt thick with tension, as if the earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for Tom's decision. He couldn't ignore the nagging thought that he wasn't the only one who knew about the book, the vault, or the power that lay beneath the surface. He had already seen the shadows of men who would stop at nothing to seize control of this ancient power. Tom's thoughts raced as he made his way back to the surface, the book clutched tightly to his chest. He needed to be careful. He needed to protect what he had found, but he also needed to understand it more fully. The oil well, once a symbol of desperation and hope, had now become something far more dangerous, something that could change the world or destroy it. As Tom approached the old well, the town came into view. He had watched it transform in the months since the discovery. New businesses had opened, jobs had been created, and the people who had once struggled to make ends meet were now thriving. But with the town's prosperity came new threats. A shadowy figure had appeared in town, a man named Marcus, a smooth-talking businessman with a keen interest in the oil well and its newfound success. Marcus had come to Tom with offers, promising him even greater wealth, greater power, but Tom could see through the veneer of charm. Marcus was not interested in making the town better. He was interested in control. It was then that Tom realized just how much was at stake. The book, the well, the power buried beneath. It wasn't just about money or success. It was about the future of everyone in the town. It was about the future of the land itself. Tom could feel it deep within his bones. There were forces at work here that no one fully understood, and Marcus wasn't the only one who wanted to exploit them. But Tom knew he couldn't let that happen. He had to protect the knowledge, the secrets, and the legacy of the land. The problem was, he didn't know how. As he walked past the bustling town square, he could feel eyes on him, as if the townspeople were waiting for him to lead them into the next chapter of their story. Tom had come from nothing. He had been a soldier, a man who had seen the worst of humanity. But now he was something more. He was the protector of a secret, the key to a power that could change everything. And he couldn't do it alone. He needed allies, people he could trust. The first person he sought out was Rachel, a local teacher who had been a constant source of support since the beginning. Rachel was smart, resourceful, and fiercely independent. She had a way of seeing through the noise, a clarity that Tom admired. They had spoken at length about the town's future, about what this discovery could mean for the people they cared about. Rachel was cautious but intrigued, and she listened carefully as Tom explained everything he had learned about the book, the vault, and the ancient power buried beneath the land. "This is bigger than we thought," Rachel said, her voice calm but resolute. "But we have to be careful. There are too many people who will try to take advantage of this, who will see it as a way to make money and gain power. We can't let that happen." Tom nodded. He had known that Rachel would understand. Together, they began to form a plan, one that would keep the secret safe while also ensuring that the town could benefit from the discovery without falling into the wrong hands. But even as they spoke, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. There was a new sense of urgency in the air, a feeling that the clock was ticking. They had to act fast. The world was changing, and Tom had to decide whether to use the power of the land for good or let it slip into the wrong hands. He knew that the right choice would not be easy. But one thing was clear. This was no longer just about an oil well or a hidden treasure. This was about the future, and Tom was ready to fight for it. Tom and Rachel worked late into the night, mapping out their plan. Every detail had to be perfect. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Marcus was already circling, trying to buy up the land, trying to convince the townspeople that his interests were in their best interest. Tom knew better. He could feel the weight of the power they had uncovered pressing down on him, and he understood the danger that came with it. The ancient book, the vault, and the secrets buried beneath the surface weren't just valuable, they were dangerous. Whoever controlled them could change the world. The problem was, they didn't fully understand what they had found. They only knew that it was something far beyond oil or treasure. They had to protect it, but they also had to find a way to use it for the good of the people who had helped Tom, who had supported him during the darkest times of his life. The following morning, Tom and Rachel met with the town's council. There were still a few people who were skeptical, but most of them had already seen the changes the oil discovery had brought to the town. They had seen the new jobs, the revitalized businesses, and the hope that had returned. But the question now was whether they could protect what had been uncovered from falling into the wrong hands. Tom spoke first. "We've discovered something beneath the well, something powerful, something that could change everything. But we have to be careful. This isn't just about wealth. It's about control. If the wrong people get their hands on it, everything we've built here could be destroyed." Rachel chimed in, her voice steady. "We've seen the damage that can happen when power falls into the wrong hands. We can't let that happen here. We need to come together and protect what we've found, not just for ourselves, but for the future." There were murmurs of agreement around the table, but also some hesitation. People had heard rumors, whispers of the dangers that Tom and Rachel were hinting at, but few understood the magnitude of what they had uncovered. "But what if we don't act?" asked one of the council members. "What if Marcus or someone like him takes control? What happens to us then?" "That's exactly what we're trying to prevent," Tom replied, his voice firm. "We need to act now. We need to set up a plan to protect the land, to keep it in our hands, and ensure that no one else has the power to manipulate it. The people who control this power will control everything. We can't let that happen." The council members exchanged looks, some uncertain, some resolute. Tom could see that the stakes were becoming clearer to them. The future of the town, of the people, of the land itself. Everything hung in the balance. After a tense silence, the oldest member of the council, a woman named Edith, spoke up. "What do you propose we do, Tom?" Tom paused for a moment, considering the best course of action. "We'll need to secure the book. We'll need to hide the vault and its secrets from anyone who might try to exploit them. We'll have to be discreet, and we'll need help from every person in this town." Rachel added, "We can't do this alone. We need to trust each other, and we need to work together to protect what we've found." Edith nodded slowly. "Then we will stand with you," she said, her voice resolute. "The town has come together before, and we will do it again. We'll protect this land, Tom, and everything it holds." The decision was made. They would safeguard the book, the vault, and the secrets beneath the earth. But even as they spoke, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that their actions had already set something into motion. Marcus would not give up so easily. He would come for them, for the land, for the power they had uncovered. Tom knew that the coming days would be filled with danger, uncertainty, and conflict. But he also knew that he couldn't back down. The land had given him a second chance, and now it was his turn to protect it. As Tom left the council meeting, Rachel walked beside him. "We have a long road ahead," she said, her voice calm but determined. "But we're in this together." Tom looked at her, grateful for her unwavering support. "Together," he repeated, "and we're not going to let anyone take this away from us." Days passed, and the tension in the town grew thicker. Tom could feel it in the air, a sense of urgency that hung over everything. The plan to protect the vault, the book, and the power beneath the surface was set into motion, but there was one thing that lingered in his mind: Marcus. He had been quiet for a while, but Tom knew that it was only a matter of time before the businessman made his move. Tom had warned the town, and they had rallied behind him, but Marcus wasn't going to give up without a fight. Tom wasn't afraid of the threat. No, what worried him was the unknown, the power they had uncovered, the ancient knowledge stored in that book, and the vault that had been hidden away for so long. It was more than wealth. It was something that could change the world. He wasn't sure how, but he knew it could. Rachel, too, had noticed the change in the atmosphere. The once quiet town was now a place of constant whispers and glances. People had begun to change. Those who had once been humble were now more eager, more suspicious, more willing to bend the rules if it meant securing a piece of the power that lay beneath the earth. And those who had been on the edge of the community, those who had always been on the outside, were now finding ways to get in, finding ways to secure a claim to the land. "We need to be more careful," Rachel said to Tom one evening as they sat in his house, the walls thick with the weight of their thoughts. "We've given the town hope, but hope can be a dangerous thing. It's not just Marcus we have to worry about. It's everyone else. They'll come for the land, the power, the knowledge. And when they do, we'll have to be ready." Tom nodded, feeling the weight of her words. The land had already given them so much, but now, it was demanding something in return. The vault wasn't just an opportunity. It was a test, and Tom had no idea what would happen when they failed. "I've been thinking about what Frank said," Tom replied, his voice heavy with the realization. "This place, this land, it's not just about oil or treasure. It's about something bigger, something that no one understands." Rachel's eyes met his. "Do you think the family knew what they were hiding?" she asked quietly. Tom sat back in his chair, his mind turning over the words, the stories, the strange symbols in the vault. He had thought it was just a relic, a part of history. But now he wasn't so sure. "I think they were protecting it," he said, his voice soft but resolute. "They knew it was powerful, and they kept it hidden for a reason. And now we have to protect it, too. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands." But even as Tom spoke, he knew that Marcus was already moving, already trying to find a way to take what wasn't his. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. The quiet of the town had been replaced by a constant hum of anxiety, and he could feel it deep in his bones. He got up, dressed quickly, and walked outside into the cool night air. The sky above was a blanket of stars, and the wind carried a chill that made him pull his jacket tighter. He walked to the edge of the town, where the well stood, silent and still. As he stood there, looking at the quiet structure, he felt the weight of everything they had uncovered pressing down on him. This was it, the turning point. The world was about to change, and Tom had no idea what it would look like on the other side. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. He turned to find Rachel walking toward him, her face serious, her eyes sharp. "You couldn't sleep either?" she asked, standing beside him. Tom shook his head. "I keep thinking about what happens next. The town's ready, but are we?" Rachel was quiet for a moment, then looked at him with a determination in her eyes. "We've come this far, Tom. We can't stop now. The vault, the book, it's more than just oil. It's about the future of this town, of everything we've built. We have to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. We have to fight for it." Tom nodded, the weight of their mission settling into him once again. He had always fought for survival, but now, he was fighting for something greater. The land, the knowledge, the future, they were all at stake. And he wasn't going to let anyone take that away. As they stood there together, the wind howling around them, Tom knew one thing for certain. The battle had just begun, and whatever came next, they would face it together. The days that followed were filled with tension. Tom, Rachel, and the rest of the town had made their decision. They would protect the vault and everything it held at all costs. The plan was set in motion, but Tom couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking on a knife's edge. The balance between preserving the power beneath the earth and preventing its exploitation was delicate. Marcus, the businessman who had circled the town for weeks, was growing more aggressive in his attempts to gain control. He had already made offers to several key landowners, and whispers of his influence had begun to spread like wildfire. It wasn't just the oil anymore. It was the book, the vault, the ancient knowledge that lay hidden. The more Tom thought about it, the more he realized that this wasn't just about wealth. It was about control of something far bigger. The real question was, who would control it? The townspeople were beginning to rally, but there were still skeptics, those who saw the vault as nothing more than a pipe dream, an illusion of power. Tom knew that convincing them would take time, but he also knew that time was something they didn't have. As the sun set on another long day, Tom found himself walking alone to the edge of town. The wind carried a chill, and the stars overhead seemed brighter than usual, as if the universe itself was watching what was happening below. Tom stood at the well, looking out over the vast land that had given him so much. It was hard to believe that just a few months ago, he had been struggling to survive, uncertain of what the future held. Now, he was a man who carried the weight of an entire town on his shoulders. But even as he stood there, the unease that had been growing inside him began to feel heavier. He wasn't sure how much longer they could hold off Marcus or anyone else who might come after the vault. His thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice. Rachel appeared at his side, her face calm, but with an edge of concern. "You've been out here for hours," she said, her eyes scanning the horizon. "We have to make a move soon, Tom. We can't wait much longer." Tom nodded, his mind still racing. "I know," he said quietly, "but I can't help but feel like we're missing something. There's more to this vault than just what's inside. The way it's hidden, the way it reacts when we get close. It's not just a place of storage. It feels alive." Rachel was silent for a moment, considering his words. "You're right," she said finally. "There's something about it that doesn't sit right. But we don't have the luxury of time to figure it all out. We need to secure it, and we need to do it fast." Tom turned to her, his face set with determination. "I'm not going to let anyone take it," he said firmly. "Not Marcus, not anyone." The next morning, Tom gathered the townspeople for a final meeting. The time had come to take action. The vault, the book, the power. It was all too valuable to be left unguarded. Tom stood before them, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We have one chance to protect this town, to protect what we've uncovered. Marcus won't stop. He's already making his move, and if we don't act now, everything we've worked for will be taken from us." The room was filled with murmurs of agreement, but there were still some who hesitated. "What exactly are we protecting?" one man asked. "How do we know it's worth the risk?" Tom's eyes hardened. "Because it's not just about money. It's about control. This land holds something that could change the world. We can't let anyone who doesn't care about this town get their hands on it. If Marcus takes it, he'll use it for his own gain. We have to stand together, and we have to act now." The weight of Tom's words hung in the air. Slowly, the room fell silent. Rachel stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. "Tom's right. We've seen the changes in this town, the prosperity we've found. But we can't ignore the fact that what we've uncovered is more than just wealth. It's something far more powerful, and if we let the wrong people control it, everything we've worked for will be lost. This isn't just about protecting the vault. It's about protecting our future." One by one, the townspeople nodded, a sense of unity beginning to take root. They were in this together, and they would fight to protect what was theirs. Tom could feel the tide shifting. He wasn't alone in this fight anymore. The town was behind him, and they would stand strong against any threat. The plan was set. They would secure the vault, keep the book hidden, and ensure that no one, especially Marcus, could ever exploit the power buried beneath the earth. But as Tom looked around the room, he knew that the battle was far from over. There was a storm coming, and they would have to face it head-on. Tom stood tall, his resolve firm. "This is our land," he said, his voice rising, "and we will protect it. Together." The days grew longer, and tension tightened around Tom and the town like a noose. The plan was set in motion, and everyone had a part to play. They had no time to waste. Marcus was moving faster than expected, using every tool at his disposal to turn the townspeople against Tom and Rachel. His offers became more insistent, more aggressive. He had friends in high places and money to burn, and he wasn't about to let a little thing like loyalty to the land stand in his way. Tom had expected as much. It was no surprise that Marcus would come for the vault, for the power buried beneath. But what he hadn't anticipated was just how far Marcus was willing to go. The subtle threats began to escalate. First, it was just rumors, whispers that Marcus had hired men to keep an eye on Tom, on the well, on every movement the townspeople made. Then, a few nights ago, a fire had mysteriously started in the barn of one of the most loyal supporters of the plan. It was put out quickly, but the message was clear. Marcus wasn't just looking to buy the land. He was willing to burn it down if he had to. Rachel had been the first to bring up the idea of fortifying the town's defenses, but Tom had dismissed it at first. He was no stranger to conflict, but the thought of turning the town into a fortress felt extreme. Still, after the fire, he realized that it might be the only option left. With Rachel's help, he began working with the town's engineers and builders, reinforcing key buildings and securing the vault's location. It wasn't just about the physical defense anymore. The townspeople had to stand together. There was no room for division. The night they finished setting up the last of the fortifications, Tom stood at the edge of the town and surveyed the work. There was an odd sense of pride mixed with fear. The town had never been this united, but the price of that unity was steep. Tom could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on him. They weren't just protecting a treasure anymore. They were protecting a future that had yet to be written. But even as Tom stood there, the shadows seemed to grow longer. The uneasy silence of the night was pierced by the distant sound of a truck approaching. The engine's low hum was unmistakable. It was Marcus, or at least, someone working for him. The truck slowed as it neared the town's border, but it didn't stop. Tom watched as it passed by, his heart hammering in his chest. He had no way of knowing if Marcus was in that truck, or if he was simply testing their defenses. Either way, it wasn't good news. "He's here," Rachel said, her voice sharp with resolve as she appeared beside Tom, her eyes scanning the street. Tom nodded. "They're testing us. They'll be back soon. We have to be ready." Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder. "We will be. But it's not just about the walls. It's about the people. The strength we have when we stand together. We can do this, Tom. You've already made them see what's at stake. We won't let it slip away." Tom looked at her, a sense of gratitude welling up inside him. He hadn't expected to find such strength in others. But Rachel had shown him that they weren't alone, that they were in this together. "I know," he said quietly, "but it's not just about Marcus. It's about what comes next. We don't know how much time we have before it all comes crashing down." That night, they sat together, strategizing, watching the shadows of their small town stretch across the land. Tom couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The next day, word spread quickly. Marcus was rallying his men, gathering forces to take the vault. The tension in the town was palpable. Tom could feel the fear in the air, but there was something else too, a quiet, unspoken determination. This wasn't just about a piece of land or a book anymore. It was about the soul of the town, the heart of everything they had worked for. Tom stood in front of the town square, looking at the people who had gathered to stand with him. "This is our last chance," he said, his voice steady, echoing through the crowd. "Marcus will try to take everything we've built, but we won't let him. This land is ours. This future is ours, and we will protect it, no matter what it takes." The crowd erupted into cheers, and for the first time in a long while, Tom felt something that had been missing from his heart: hope. The battle wasn't over, but they were ready for whatever came next. Together, they would stand, and together, they would fight. The final confrontation came faster than Tom expected. It was an early morning when the first signs of the impending battle appeared. Marcus and his men, armed with bulldozers and heavy equipment, were headed straight for the vault. The air was thick with tension as the town readied itself for what would undoubtedly be the hardest fight they had ever faced. Tom stood at the town's edge, looking out over the land that had given them so much. Now, it was about to be tested. Rachel was at his side, her eyes steely with determination. They knew this wasn't just a physical battle. This was about the heart and soul of the town. The vault wasn't just a treasure. It was a symbol of everything they had fought for. They couldn't let Marcus take it. The stakes were too high. As Marcus' convoy approached, the town was already in position. Every person who had stood by Tom and Rachel in the past weeks was ready. The defenses they had built, the barricades, the hidden passages, were all set to slow Marcus down. But Tom knew it wouldn't be enough to just hold them off. This would be a fight of wills, a test of who could outlast the other. When Marcus and his men reached the town limits, Tom stepped forward, his voice loud and clear. "This is our land," he said. "You're not taking it. Not now, not ever." Marcus sneered from the back of his truck. "You think you can stop me? I've got enough power, enough money, to do whatever I want. You're just a bunch of farmers and dreamers. This place doesn't belong to you." Tom's hands clenched into fists, but his voice remained calm. "You're wrong. This land is ours, and we will fight for it." The sound of bulldozers revving up filled the air, followed by the thud of heavy equipment being deployed. The ground shook beneath their feet as the machines advanced, but the town held firm. Rachel stood beside Tom, rallying the people, urging them to stand strong. They weren't just defending land. They were defending everything they had built together. The first wave of Marcus' men tried to push through the barricades, but the townspeople were ready. They fought back with everything they had: bricks, stones, makeshift weapons, determined to stop them. The battle was fierce, but it wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for their future. As the hours passed, the sun rose higher in the sky, casting a harsh light on the chaos unfolding before them. The town fought with a unity that Tom had never seen before. They were all in this together, bound by a common purpose. But the battle was far from over. Marcus, seeing his men struggling, gave the signal for a second wave. This time, they brought in more heavy equipment, threatening to break through the town's defenses. Tom watched as the bulldozers advanced, but his resolve only strengthened. He had promised to protect this town, and he wasn't going to let it fall. "Get ready," he said to Rachel, his voice steady. "We can't hold them forever, but we can slow them down. It's time to make our final stand." Tom and Rachel moved quickly, directing the townspeople to position themselves for the last phase of their defense. They used their knowledge of the land, the hidden passages, and the natural terrain to their advantage. Every inch of ground was fought for, every inch a reminder of the sacrifices they had made. As Marcus' men closed in on the vault, the air grew heavier, filled with the tension of an inevitable showdown. Tom knew that this battle would determine the fate of the town, the vault, and everything they had worked for. It was now or never. The sound of machines roaring grew louder, and the rumble of the earth beneath them intensified. But in the distance, Tom saw something he hadn't expected. The local sheriff and a group of townspeople who had once been uncertain, now racing toward the battlefield. They had come to stand with Tom and Rachel. The sheriff's voice rang out over the chaos. "This town belongs to the people. Marcus, you're done here. Turn around and leave. Now." Marcus hesitated, his eyes flashing with rage, but there was something in the sheriff's voice, in the determination of the townspeople, that made him pause. He hadn't expected the town to stand so firm. He hadn't expected the unity they had found. For the first time, Marcus realized he was facing more than just a group of people trying to protect their land. He was facing a force that had found its strength in standing together. With a final look of defiance, Marcus gave the order to retreat. His men turned, leaving the battlefield, abandoning their plans to seize the vault. The town had won. The vault, the land, and the future were safe, for now. Tom stood there, watching as Marcus and his men disappeared into the distance, the weight of the battle lifting from his shoulders. It was over, but the cost had been high. The town had been tested in ways they had never imagined, and they had come out stronger for it. As Tom looked around at the people who had fought beside him, he knew that the true treasure wasn't the vault or the oil, it was the people of the town. Together, they had defended what mattered most. Together, they had built a future worth fighting for. The battle was over, but the aftermath was a quiet one. The sound of retreating engines echoed across the land as Marcus and his men left, defeated. The town was still standing, but there was a palpable silence in the air, the kind that follows a storm. The dust settled, and the weight of the past few days began to lift. Tom stood at the edge of the town, staring out across the land. It felt different now, less tense, but still charged with the energy of the battle they had just fought. His eyes scanned the horizon, the land that had been tested, tried, and defended. The town had come together in a way Tom had never expected. They had fought for something more than just land or treasure. They had fought for their future. Rachel joined him, standing quietly at his side. She didn't need to say anything. Tom knew what she was thinking. They had done it. They had won. "It's over," Rachel finally said, her voice soft. "But it's not the end." Tom nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. The vault, the book, the power hidden beneath the earth. They were safe for now, but the world was changing, and they both knew that they couldn't stop here. "I know," Tom said quietly, "but we've done something important. We've proven that we can protect what matters. And that's enough for now." They walked back to the heart of the town, where the people were gathering to celebrate their victory. There was a sense of relief in the air, a shared understanding that they had faced something far bigger than any of them had anticipated. But now, it was time to rebuild, to move forward. The town had come together, and in doing so, it had become something stronger than it had ever been. Tom could feel the pride in the air, the sense of unity that they had all forged together. It wasn't just the victory that mattered. It was what had been created in the process. The vault was still there, hidden beneath the earth, but its power was no longer a secret. It wasn't something that could be controlled by a single person or a group of outsiders. It belonged to the people of the town now, and together, they would decide what to do with it. Tom wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The battles may have been fought, but there would always be new challenges. The world was full of opportunities, and there would be those who sought to exploit them. But Tom knew one thing for certain. As long as they stood united, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. The town had been tested in ways they had never expected, but they had come through stronger, more connected than ever. The fight for the vault was over, but the fight for their future had just begun, and Tom was ready. He looked around at the faces of the people who had fought beside him, at the town that had supported him through everything, and he felt a deep sense of gratitude. They had built something together, a future worth fighting for. As the sun set on that long day, Tom and Rachel stood together, looking out over the town. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And that, Tom realized, was the greatest victory of all. The journey was far from over, but they had taken the first steps toward a new beginning. The land was theirs, the vault was theirs, and for the first time in a long while, Tom felt at peace. This was their future, and it was worth fighting for. In this gripping tale of perseverance and resilience, a veteran finds himself on a journey that leads him to uncover powerful secrets buried beneath the earth. This is one of the most thrilling veteran stories you will ever hear. When a veteran purchases a seemingly useless oil well, little does he know that he is stepping into a world of mystery, danger, and hidden treasures that will change his life forever. As he faces off against those who seek to exploit the land's power, the veteran is pushed to the limits of his strength, courage, and will. With the support of his community, he stands tall against those who would destroy everything he's fought for. This is not just another of the ordinary veteran stories you've heard. It is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the importance of protecting what truly matters. As the veteran and his town unite to defend their home and its secrets, they prove that when people stand together, they can accomplish anything. The vault and its power hold the key to an uncertain future, but with determination and unity, this veteran and his town will stop at nothing to protect their legacy. Whether it's protecting a hidden treasure or standing up against overwhelming odds, this veteran's story will inspire you to never give up, no matter how dark the road ahead may seem. These veteran stories are not just about battles fought in the past. They are about the fight for a brighter future. From the first discovery to the final confrontation, the journey is filled with unexpected twists and turns, all leading to a powerful conclusion. Experience the extraordinary life of a veteran who proves that no matter the challenge, strength and hope can overcome anything. This veteran's story will stay with you long after the final chapter ends.